Today we're going to talk about measurements. So there's standard units for each of the measurements we're going to talk about. We're going to start with length, then we're going to move to volume, time, temperature, and then mass versus weight and what that means. So let's start with length. The SI unit for length is going to be the meter. And it can be broken down into 1 meter equals 100 centimeters, and then each centimeter is worth 10 millimeters. So if I'm looking at my meter stick, so my entire meter stick I have to turn sideways because it's 100 centimeters to get it all in the picture. But if I just want to zoom in and look at the divisions, 1 centimeter has 10 little tiny notches in between. And those each are 1 millimeter. So for every 1 centimeter, I have 10 millimeters. And for every whole meter, that whole stick, I have 100 centimeters. So if I want to measure, the first thing I'm going to do is line up one end of the object I'm measuring with 0. And then I'm going to go all the way over to the very, very tip. And I'm going to look where that actually lines up. So if I'm looking at this, I would say there are 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.3 centimeters in length for my pencil, or I could say 15 centimeters and 3 millimeters. Either one would be a correct measurement. I can also take length and find area. So if I wanted to find the area of a rectangle or a square, I just simply multiply length times height. So 2 centimeters times 3 centimeters is 6 centimeters squared because I multiply my units too. So I'm going to have square centimeters, or whatever other unit I measured in, that would also be squared if I were actually going to do this for an area measurement. Now our next one will be volume. And volume is the space occupied by an object. You could use formulas like length times height times width to find a cube. So if I took my original and made this 3-dimensional, and let's say it was 2 times 3 times another 2 centimeters in width, then I could take this number and it would be 12 centimeters. Well, it would be 12 centimeters cubed. All right, so we can also use water displacement. And water displacement's for irregularly shaped objects. And we use what's called a graduated cylinder. So here is my graduated cylinder. And when we're using water, well, first we need to know what the volume of water itself, which is a liquid. And we use a meniscus. So if I'm looking, there's a little curve in my water level. The bottom of that curve is the meniscus. And if I'm looking at this, it looks like at about 43 milliliters, which is my volume measurement for this liquid, would be my current volume of the water. Now, if I add my object in, well, now my volume level looks to be at 45. So if I'm looking at my meniscus again, it's right along 45 milliliters. So that means my rock's volume was 45 milliliters minus my original 43, or 2 milliliters, for the volume of my rock. And that was using water displacement to measure the volume of the rock, and liquid volume, focusing on the meniscus for where I'm measuring. So every time you want to line up with the meniscus, or the bottom of that little curve from the water. So the bottom of the water curve. Now, time's a little more straightforward. The SI unit is seconds. We know there are 60 seconds in 1 minute. And for every 60 minutes, you get 1 hour. So you can actually do time pretty straightforward. Now, temperature is only a little tricky, only that the unit itself is actually Kelvin. And then if I'm looking at my units,